Do I have a good rant video for you guys today? It's been a minute since I've ever done a good rant video, and I think today's is going to get you as ranty as it's gotten me. So stick around and we'll talk about it, this time on K6UDA Radio. Let's do this. Like I said, been a minute since I've done a really good rant video where a comment or something has made me want to actually take the camera and talk back to a commenter. This guy has got me so fired up, I just have to talk about it. But before we jump into this, I just want to remind you guys to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here, and go over to Rumble. If you haven't really started watching the show here yet, and you haven't because you're here, click over to rumble.com/K6UDA. Give me a follow over there and watch the video there. That would do me a huge solid. Also, if you're over here and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. That is the best way to break the YouTube algorithm. And hey, you could support me either on Locals or Patreon if you see fit. Now, back to the show. From Danny Boy. We'll call him Danny Boy, because I guess he didn't ask for fame and notoriety, so I won't give it to him. No, what we expect of new kids coming into the hobby is to be literate in radio electronics and not be an appliance operator, as you appear to be. This video was not a review of radios, but rather of appliance features. Of course, this is all the result of the dumbing down of the amateur radio test. Now I could see it. Of the amateur radio tests, where people just have to memorize a few answers to questions, and magically they're a licensed ham who wouldn't know the difference between capacitance and inductance without Googling it, let alone be able to calculate the resonant frequency of an RLC circuit. Heck, half the newly minted extras I meet can't even figure out how to build a dipole without YouTube. By the time you earn your extra class, you should be able to design and build a radio or amplifier from the ground up. You should have the skills to perform circuit board level repairs and maintenance on radio electronics. Nowadays, a ham radio ticket isn't worth the paper it's printed on. Well, it ain't printed unless you print it. Of course, the fact that you can call it a hobby, or that you call it a hobby, is a perfect example of the dumbing down of amateur radio service. It's not a hobby, it's a radio service. Ham radio operators are considered a national resource. We are supposed to be a group of electronics radio technicians who can be called upon in emergencies to set up and operate emergency communication systems. If we cannot provide this service, the FCC might as well just auction off the ham radio spectrum to the commercial industry, who will be able to provide that service. If you're going to talk about transceivers, then maybe you should be talking about how low voltage inducted IMD products, or maybe discuss phase noise of the transmitters rather than what the latest, greatest appliance has. Talking about doing the amateur radio service a benefit, maybe you should do a few videos discussing the third order intercept point, or maybe even filter shape. Unfortunately, The dumbing down of the amateur radio test has allowed amateur radio service to become flooded with non-STEM educated individuals, people who have very little background in understanding in science and math, which is the backbone of the amateur radio service. Since you're talking about doing the amateur radio service a positive, maybe you should do a video discussing impedance, reactance, and the real and imaginary numbers associated with it. I mean, if you got your extra license, you actually had to demonstrate that you could do the math, or did you just memorize the answers to the questions? Personally, I'd rather see fewer, more educated ham radio operators than a flood of ignorant ham radio operators. Of course, this explains why the ham radio bands today are nothing more than glorified CB. First of all, to my friends out there, Danny Boy is why people say the hobby is dying. Danny Boy is actually killing the hobby. He's killing the service. And why do I say that? Because, first of all, Danny Boy is an elitist twat. And he's a bully, by the way. He's trying to intimidate the rest of us with his vast knowledge of electronics and science and math. He's a wizard. He's a veritable god. And we should all genuflect in his presence because he is the master and we are nothing but peons who shouldn't even be allowed in the door. And he wants to keep it that way. I have no doubt that Danny Boy works in the industry. So this isn't really his hobby. This is his business. He's doing something in the radio technology world or the technology world, and he's probably very smart at it, and I'm sure he treats his coworkers, or at least the ones that aren't exactly at the same level as him, he treats them like shit. They are nothing more than people who should be picking up the trash after him. I love his statement that if we cannot provide this service, then the FCC might as well just auction off the ham radio spectrum to the commercial industry who will be able to provide that service. Well, Danny Boy, if that were the case, if that were all it was about, and the 250,000 of you super smart people in the country, we wouldn't have an amateur radio service at all. And they would, and they are trying to auction off the ham radio spectrum to the highest bidder. And it isn't necessarily so they could fix the problems or work during an emergency. It is for money. And it is to grease the palms of the politicians and make the money. You probably do see that because you're probably part of the problem, not part of the solution. You see, the guys that were part of the solution and continue to be part of the solution are the super smart guys such as yourself. But these guys actually want to see people like me, just the peons who don't have a background in STEM, science, math. They want to see us succeed. They want to see us learn about ham radio, become involved in ham radio, have a great time, do things like field day. If it were just about the service, my friend, we wouldn't have things like field day. There wouldn't be contests. There wouldn't be POTA or SOTA. There wouldn't be a whole lot of other things. It would just be a bunch of smart guys sitting around designing radios and arguing amongst each other about the third order of harmonics. Guys, I am proud to make videos for the common man, for the beginners, for the guys like me who aren't well versed in the science and theory of STEM, science and math. This is a fun hobby. It's a great service. It's there if you want to be part of the radio service and do part of the emergency communications. It's there for you. If you want a contest, it's there for you. If you want to build radios and amplifiers and dipole antennas, it's there for you. If you just want to learn about it and have it in your toolbox for when an emergency happens in your world, it's there for you. Don't let guys like Danny Boy discourage you from getting into the hobby. Don't let them discourage you from being part of the hobby. Just tell them that they're an idiot, a twat, and to go away. And finally, I'd like to tell Danny, if you'd like to make videos on IMD products and talk about how low voltage induced IMD products or phase noise of transmitters, go ahead, make that video, have a great time. I've been doing this for a while now. I ain't the best at it, but I'm probably one of the better filmmakers, storytellers in this business. And that's what's important to me. That's how I'm giving back to the ham radio service. And to you, Danny, and your elitist bully friends, piss off. I'm Bob, K6UDA, and I'm out of here. 7-3.